All right, it's 7:02. I'd like to call this meeting to order. Can the city clerk please call the roll?
Aaron
Here.
Adams. Bill Brown.
Here.
Dean Hazen.
Here.
Eric Jacobson.
Here.
Jared Miller.
Here.
Dennis Roberts.
Here.
Mary Alice Wu.
Here.
Mayor Marlin.
Here.
And we're all here.
All right, let's look at the meeting minutes for April 24th, 2017. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
I'll second.
Motion by Eamon, seconded by Dennis.
No. Actually,
I'm
You
sorry.
can call me Dennis if you want
Jared.
to.
Jared.
Jared. Seconded by Jared. Are there any additions? Sorry.
Discussion.
Is there any discussion? Thank you. With no discussion, I'd like to call the
No, a voice vote is
a
okay.
voice vote, please. Everybody who says A.
Hey.
Hey.
Any nays? That motion carries. Any additions to the agenda? All right, seeing none. Public input. We have Bishop King Underwood, who does not wish to speak. He is still concerned about the Dr. Ellis subdivision sewer problems. Is there anybody else who'd like to speak? No? All right. Moving on. Presentations. Any presentations? No? All right. Number 6, staff report. No staff report. All right.
The mayor.
Mayor.
I guess I qualify.
Yes.
I just wanted to recognize the wonderful event that Snyder Property Management and the Champaign County NAACP hosted on Saturday at Silver Water. They held a Silver Water Peace Walk, neighborhood cleanup, and cookout. It was wonderfully attended by people in the neighborhood and really from across the city. We had great representation from the city of Urbana. City planner Lori Pearson was there, plus the Urbana Fire Department and Urbana Police Department participated, as well as the Southeast Urbana Neighborhood Association. Alderman Miller was there. So it was a great event, and we hope to see more of those in the future. So I just wanted to thank Snyder Property Management, Jessica Wettig, and the NAACP.
Thank you. So let's begin. Whoops, I'm sorry.
A late entry. I do have one announcement. So on Tuesday, May 16th, from 5:30 to 7, there will be a Curtis Road meeting at the Philo Road Church of Christ. The Curtis Road presentation will have talk about kind of the final conceptual plan for the Curtis Road corridor between US 45 and High Cross Road, Illinois 130, and broken down into suggested improvements between now and 2030, between now and 2040, and then after 2040. So there's been a lot of public input. There's been 2 or 3 meetings to date, so this will be another meeting for Curtis Road, the corridor study, on Tuesday, May 16th, 5:30 to 7 at the Philo Road Church of Christ, which is right there at Philo and Windsor, the north west corner.
What was the name of the church again? I'm sorry.
The Philo Road Church of Christ,
Bill,
and it's located at Philo and Windsor.
Bill, could you guys email this to us? An
I
invite?
think there'll be a notice in your
I was
packet
going to
Thursday.
say, okay,
This Thursday.
thanks.
Bill.
And that's starting at 5:30. There's actually a presentation, so if people want to go, they should be there at 5:30, right? Not something you can drop in on.
You know, I'm not positive about that or not. You know, you'll have the actual flyer in Thursday's packet,
Okay.
and it may mention that. But yes, that's a good suggestion. Get there at 5:30, just so
Okay.
you don't miss anything.
Thanks.
All right, let's move along. Resolution number 2017-05029R. There are 3 resolutions that are bundled together, but I think we have to move them to council separately. So, hello.
Hi. My name is Natalie Kenny Marquez. For those of you I haven't met yet, I'm the director of Urbana's Market at the Square and the marketing coordinator here at the City of Urbana. There are 3 resolutions all related to Market at the Square. Do you want me to just speak to the first one, or can I speak to all?
So, sorry.
If you want, if somebody on the council wants to make a motion to consider these 3 resolutions in omnibus fashion, you can do that, but to do that, there must be unanimous approval to consider them in omnibus fashion, and if you do, then there would be 1 single vote, which does not require after that unanimous approval.
I
So
move
unanimous
these,
approval for omnibus, and then a regular vote after that.
Okay.
I move these resolutions be considered in omnibus fashion, the ones relating to Market at the Square.
Second.
Motion made by Eric, seconded by Bill. All of those in favor say
Aye.
Hey.
aye. All those
Hey.
opposed say nay.
Do I vote?
The ayes have it. Looks like it's unanimous. So we'll be listening to Resolution 2017-05029R, Resolution 2017-05030R, and 2017-05031R.
All right, thank you so much. So all 3 of these grants are related to Urbana's Market at the Square. 2 of them benefit our SNAP program. That means Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. Since for about the past 6 years, we've offered this program at the farmers market to allow our customers that have link cards to use those benefits at the farmers market. And these 2 grants allow us to match purchases up to $20 per weekend. So that means the customer can come to the market info tent, swipe their link card on our machine for, say, $20, and then we'll give them another 20. So now they have 40 to buy eligible products. That includes meat, dairy, honey, prepared foods that most prepared foods, fruit-bearing plants. I know I'm forgetting something. Nuts. We found out whole bean coffee also is allowed under that, and we have a vendor selling that this year. So it's a great program. Farm Credit, this will be the 2nd year that they have granted us funds, and Link Up Illinois, this will be the 6th year they've granted us those funds. So altogether, that's over $12,000 in matching funds. That's more than we received last year, more than we received any year before that. As a frame of reference, last year we distributed over $21,500 in SNAP and SNAP Double Value over the course of the 27-week market season. That was a great season for us for the SNAP program.
So Natalie, when you say that, are you saying that it was a total of 21, or the match was 21? I'm trying to clarify.
The total altogether. So distributed from SNAP would be about 1,100.
Half of that.
Yeah. Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah. Any other questions about SNAP?
Do you know how those amounts end up being determined as to what grant they offer?
The grants vary. Farm Credit, for example, that's more of, I'd say, a gift than a grant. It's not a competitive process. They really believe in the market, and our missions align, so do our priorities, and they offered us that amount because they love the SNAP program. Link Up Illinois, for example, they are a re-granting agency. They receive funding from USDA grants, and then they distribute that to markets across the state. And so we all apply and receive funds from them, and it varies from year to year based on what they have available to grant to us.
So they just send you an email someday and say, hey, we have this much to offer, and that's basically what you get?
Yeah, this year they said, could you use $7,500? And I said yes. That was how that happened.
But we don't solicit them to try and ask for more or anything like that.
If we run out, I'll ask them for more. Or if I see that money going quickly this season, I won't hesitate to ask for more.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I assume we publicly say, hey, this is how much is out of here, and try and encourage folks to come out and use it because it's there?
Yes, yep. We have the symbol for the link card on just about all of our promotions. We try to talk about it in our weekly promotions, whether it be on TV or radio or on the website, urbanamarket.org. We have a press release in the works once everything is approved and we'll keep promoting. We also have about $1,300 carryover from last year's Link Up grant, and so that's what we're sliding by on right now.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yep.
As far as the products, you said certain things qualified.
Yes.
So the people, the entities that are granting and giving the gifts, they allow us to, or you, to determine what those are, or their legal boundaries as it relates to what qualifies and what doesn't for the SNAP?
Great question. So USDA dictates what's allowed to be purchased using SNAP benefits. The Link Up grant that we're receiving will allow us to match for produce only. Farm credit is for any eligible item under SNAP. The same as we did last year. The produce matching comes as a paper voucher, and the total link match comes as a token with a little star on it.
So if I was a person who wanted to use the link, then you would, there's a way for you to determine, it seems a little more confusing than I thought at this particular point, that you could, you don't just give me the coin or whatever and say, okay, you can, all of these things qualify. You have to like give me 3 different things.
So we're going to use the money one at a time. That way it's not super confusing. And we offer a map with a listing of the vendors that are SNAP eligible. We try to make at least half of our vendors at every market SNAP eligible vendors. That way there's a great variety to pick from and a wide variety of products available. So no matter what the benefits that you take out from your card will always allow you to buy meat, dairy, produce, and prepared food, honey and fruit-bearing plants. And then these matching dollars will allow either for produce or all of those other eligible items, just as how quickly we exhaust those funds.
So I like for things to be very pragmatic and make sure that those who are watching, who are going to ask me tomorrow,
Yeah.
I can just go ahead and, so if I wanted to spend $20, but I wanted the complete variety of options,
Yep.
I would say to you, okay, well, Natalie, I want to do produce now, and you would say, okay, this is what I can give you to match that, or go to these places and you can spend. I'm just trying to get an actual understanding of how it would go, so that a person who wanted to get the full benefits of the program, how does it work for an individual who walking up and saying, okay, I want to spend $30?
Sure. And I would be happy to give anybody a tour at the market and show how this program works if you're
Saturday.
interested in coming at 7 a.m. on a Saturday. So as a customer, you'd come up with your link card, and we'd swipe that card, and we'd ask you how much you'd like from your card. We'll say you want 20 from your card, so we'll give you $20 in tokens, and you can use those tokens for all eligible products at the market. And then we'll match that 20, and if we're using the funds that's from Farm Credit, you can use those tokens for any SNAP eligible items. Now, if we've exhausted all those funds and we've moved on to the Link Up funds, there'll be vouchers, and they'll say produce only, really big letters on there, and it looks like a different type of money. It's instead of a wooden coin, it is I think it's an orange voucher this year. And so you could use that for produce. And we'll explain it. We've given folks tours, we hand out a map, and we try to be very helpful and accommodating, especially when we make that transition. We did it last year, and it was very successful. And I wish that Link Up money was for all items, but their grant from USDA made it mandatory that they could only match produce. So.
Okay, I'll be there at some point. I'm up at 5 on Saturday, so 7 didn't scare me at all.
Then come on over. We'd be happy to have you.
All right, thank you.
So when do the funds usually switch over? So you said that there's 2 different kinds. I'm wondering during what part of the year does that usually happen?
It depends on when we get the funds. So last year the Link Up funding didn't come until later in the season. The funding we were using before that was from Farm Credit. And so that's why we have a little bit of funding left over from Link Up, is because it came later in the season, and so we didn't exhaust it as quickly. So now that we're receiving all these funds much earlier in the season, it's possible we'll go through them faster. On average, we see about 25 transactions per Saturday. Last Saturday, for example, we distributed about 230 in SNAP and then the matching, so another 230 from the match. So that wasn't too bad for opening day that started off with rain, but we expect that to go up. And the amount that is distributed fluctuates depending on when the link cards are loaded by the state, which usually happens towards the beginning of the month.
Okay, thanks. Jared?
Just one more question. Do you guys have a guide?
Yes.
Or something that you can hand people to explain, hey, this is what you can use for this, this is what you can use for that?
Yep, we have a guide, we have a brochure and a map as well. Our website also has a video on how it works. It's pretty short.
Specific to the SNAP stuff?
Yep.
Okay.
So go to urbanamarket.org, and it's under one of the program. Well, actually, it's a tab of its own, SNAP/link.
Cool.
And it's a video that we produced last year with funding from SNAP.
Awesome.
Yep.
Thanks.
All right, move on to the next one.
The third and last one is a grant from First Federal Savings Bank of Champaign-Urbana. This is the second year they've offered us funding to help produce our Sprouts at the Market program. That's our nutrition and farm linkage for kids ages 3 to 8 years old. Every month we have a different theme. I work with a registered dietitian to curate that curriculum and make that available to our patrons and their families. Sprouts has been around for quite a number of years, and it happens on the third Saturday of each month from 9:30 to 11:30.
I noticed that there was one of the items that they asked for was a booth.
Yes.
So I'm just curious, what's the cost of renting a booth?
So the booth that they will have is part of the of their presentation of the Sprouts program.
Okay.
So it varies a little bit from a vendor coming to market. First Federal doesn't qualify to come to market because they're not selling an item that they're making their bank. So if you are a vendor, it's $25 per space per weekend, and if you are a community group, it is $10 per space per weekend.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
All right, any other questions? No? All right, so is there a motion for, is there a motion
Yeah.
to move this?
So I move that these resolutions be sent to full council with recommendation for approval in, what is the word?
Omnibus.
In omnibus fashion.
Second.
Okay, motion by Eric, seconded by Ammons. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those who oppose say nay. All right, that motion carries to be sent to council.
Thank
All right,
you.
thank you very much. The next is an ordinance number 2017-05022, an ordinance amending the Urbana City Code, Chapter 14, Section 14.7, regarding the schedule of fees.
Hello. My name's Beth Beatty, and I think I've met everyone now. This is the annual revision of the fee schedule. It's the opportunity for fees to be changed with one ordinance, so they don't all have to go through separately. You have a memo in front of you. I don't want to read it word from word unless you want me to, but hopefully you all had a chance to read that. But essentially, the revenue from the fees help to for the licenses and the permits and the meters and sewer. This year, they're going to generate approximately $316,000. And without increasing these fees, it's that help out, it makes it more difficult to pay for the rising costs for personnel and the services that the city does. So are there any specific fees that you have any questions about?
Dennis?
Yeah, because this one actually, I'm personally interested in it, and I needed a little bit of clarification. And it was fee number 13 on the list of fees having to do with the annual rental property registration. It reads that you're adding a $55 fee for owner-occupied duplexes where the owner lives on one side and rents the other. No additional revenue is expected from it. And when I read it, I read that you were going to be adding $55 to the fee that that owner already pays.
No, it's adding this new fee in, so the owner that occupies one side of the duplex isn't charged $70.
So it's a reduction
It's
in
a
the fee.
reduction, yes.
And that's a benefit because the individual is actually living in the home.
Reside, yes, yeah. And
Now,
renting the
now
other
that
side.
makes sense, actually.
Anyone else? Yes, Aaron?
So number 3, the vehicles for hire.
Yes.
I'm very curious about the Uber drivers, Lyft drivers, and all of that. Last term, I raised this on numerous occasions about how and when we were going to get some clarity about whether or not Uber drivers and things, people who are driving like that, or have to pay these fees. Where are we with that?
Well, we do have changes and proposed sections to the section 23, I think, 26. I can't remember off the top of my head, but we do have those ready. They're just in draft form right now. And when staff gets a little more time to concentrate on that, we will present that to council. And with the vehicle for hires, with the changes that were asked to be brought forth with that as well, Urbana continues to work with the city of Champaign on proposed changes to that as well. So we'd like to present those at the same time as was asked before.
So this fee is for people who have a cab or taxi service?
So
No?
the fee increase here are for the current vehicle for hire owners, taxis, limousines, as well as the drivers of those. This has nothing to do with transportation network companies, the Ubers, the Lyfts.
So, I don't,
We don't have an ordinance that regulates them right now at this time.
but they are considered vehicle for hire.
Transportation network companies, like Uber and Lyft,
Yes.
they are not.
They're totally under a different legal jurisdiction, Aaron.
Yeah. But what staff has in draft form that we will be bringing to council, hopefully later this year, is something that would put in front of you to vote on whether or not you would like for the city to regulate them or not, the companies and the
Yes.
drivers.
Oh, I'm sorry, I'm not supposed to vote yet?
You can vote if y'all want to vote now, go for it. We'll just get it out of the way.
I'm just uncomfortable with the fact that we have that type of transportation network working without having to pay the fees, yet every time I see a cab driver talk to Mr. Willie or Mr. Shannon or any of the other Herschel, they're all saying, why am I continuing to pay fees and now paying more fees when other people are doing the exact same thing I'm doing and they don't have to pay any?
Yeah, and I agree with that 100%. I've talked to several of the owners. I've had them in my office. We've had meetings. I've sent them letters updating them on the status of where we're at. I've tried to keep them informed throughout this process. We would have liked to have brought it back sooner. There were some delays in doing that. It is still our intention to bring that to council this year for you to see and for you to vote on.
Okay.
All right. I had a quick question about how these compare to the city of Champaign,
Which fees?
the building.
The what?
Sorry, just the fees for operation, just in general. Like, are they pretty much on par with Champaign?
I could get back to you on that just off the top of my head. I haven't looked at all of them individually, comparing them
Just
to
an
Champaign.
overall assessment.
I mean, sometimes we license fees that the city of Champaign wouldn't license.
Okay.
So things like that. If you want, I can look into that and send you an update on that.
Yeah, I would be interested
Yep.
in that. Thank
Yep.
you. Bill?
Yeah, on the parking meters, that's going to be $1.25 per hour, right?
Yes.
And that the U of I and Champaign are also doing that.
Yes.
For the campus parking
That is
meters?
correct.
So that comes out to like 11.34 or something like that minutes per quarter.
Something
It's going to be
like
a little
that.
bit harder to.
It
figure
will
out how
be.
many.
We'll figure it out. We'll make it work.
So does that seems like it would also increase the value of the permits, but we aren't doing any permit increases, is that right?
We don't have permits on campus. We don't do like
And then-
where like the U of I has like a daily permit. We do not do
And
that.
then the near campus neighborhood permits,
The
the
3 to
spec-
3 restricted area permits. Those were increased a few years ago, and we did do a cost estimate on that just to make sure that we weren't increasing them too much. We haven't looked at that for this.
Okay. And then as far as the non-campus parking lots, is the utilization pretty good on those?
The majority of our lots are all in our downtown. And I think the last time I looked, we were about 55% utilization. We are in the process of updating our 2008 downtown parking study. And we hope to be able to get some guidance and confirmation for taking a look at the downtown rates, the lot rates, the rental rates, and just kind of see where we at on what our needs are, if it's sufficient or not. And later on this year, we'll also be bringing that to council for you guys to see.
Okay. It just seemed like we have one rate for all of downtown, but some of the lots are more peripheral, and maybe not utilized as well. And maybe we should even consider a lower rate for some of the.
Yeah. So what I think will happen, but again, that's up to you. But what I think we would like to propose is a tiered rate structure. We know Main Street's busy. We know lots surrounding Main Street's busy, and sometimes employees in the downtown, they take up those spaces. We would still like employees to be able to park in the downtown if they want to drive in, but we would like to push them off so we could have, lesser amount at the meters in those lots and then higher amounts as you get downtown. So.
All right, Jared?
So one other question. In the initial assessment, it says all these increases will generate $3,116 and $810 in additional revenue. So that
New.
means if all remained flat, that is something we would not get, right?
That is correct.
Okay, that's all I wanted to know. Thanks.
Dean?
If I can figure out my microphone for the first time, is it on? Just for the record, back on the Uber driver thing, I know a lot of Uber drivers. I've experimented with it myself, and I just wanted to say for the record, I think it's not even comparable to a full-time cab company, and I will probably disagree with any fees for that. It's a completely different animal. We're talking about people who are trying to make $100 or $200 a month on the side. And it's not a full-fledged business at all. It's a completely different thing. So just wanted to put in my 2 cents on that.
All right.
Thank you.
Eric?
So just to follow up on that, is it possible to assess, what the issue that's been raised here by Dean? That is, if we look at the Uber and Lyft drivers in our community, I guess I agree with the notion that the fees ought to be in some sense proportional to the revenue that the person or the company is earning. Will it be possible to get that information and make that adjustment in that way?
So I think when it's brought before council, we'll certainly do, we'll look into what other municipalities are charging. We'll look into, comparable rates as far as Chicago regulates. They've started to license the drivers as well. And of course, we don't want to put it all on the drivers, and we realize that. But we'll bring forth all the information that we possibly can when we present that to you.
Do Uber and Lyft, do they ever provide municipalities with data on how, for example, how many hours each driver, they have those data for sure.
We can certainly invite Uber and Lyft to come and speak, and perhaps maybe a representative from their company can come and answer those questions.
Absolutely.
Yeah, maybe if you know, the issue is presented to them that the first draft of this might be to charge each person as much as we charge vehicles for hire, unless they can provide solid information that suggests that wouldn't be appropriate.
And the company.
Yeah.
Bill?
Okay, since we're on this subject, I guess I would weigh in just to treat it more like a franchise model and maybe try to extract money from the company rather than the drivers, because actually the drivers, I don't think, make that much, and some of them, for one of the companies, they can't accept tips. So I think the ones really making the money are the companies. So.
Having been a former Uber driver myself, I can definitely say I did not make a lot of money doing it, and I did do it very, very part-time, you know, minuscule hours. So it'd be interesting to see the comparison between people who are doing it full-time, because there are people who do it full-time and use it to make a living. I've been driven by them, and they're out there all the time. That's what they do.
Yeah, the ones I have talked to, I think it's very difficult for them to do it for a living full-time because there are so many drivers that there's no surcharges. They're not making, unless it's like a special weekend that,
Right.
you know, in town.
Now
So they are out there
market's
all the
flooded now.
time.
Right, the market's
Right.
flooded now with
Right.
people.
Right, so even the part-time drivers, you know, that were just doing it just for an extra $100 or $200, it's hard for them to even get that.
That's why I quit doing it.
Right.
All right, any other discussion? Is there a motion?
I do have a question. We have to vote on all of this at once? Or are we going to vote on each one of them?
We already moved the first three to council, and now we're on to the ordinance.
You would vote on all the fees.
Or
It's-
all the
it's a
fees, I'm
one.
sorry. Yeah.
But
Yes.
it does go on file for 30 days. So, and then we would bring it back for you at a special council meeting on June 12th. So that's when it would get presented. It has to be on file with the city clerk for 30 days for public viewing.
This,
Yes, Aaron?
yes, thank you. I'm sorry for jumping in all the time and making this difficult for you. This just sort of reminds me of, I guess, how they do things in Washington. They just put a whole bunch of stuff together and make you vote yes or no on it, even though you might not like parts of it or something like that. So I feel like I'm being forced to vote for something that I don't really like all of it. I like 98.5% of it.
Except for number 3.
I just don't like number 3.
Number 3. If you don't like something, you can vote on it.
Oh.
Talk about it.
Dennis?
Yeah, it's possible to divide the vote, so you can actually pick a section of the ordinance that you want to vote on separately, some item in it, and you can ask the council by a motion to divide the vote, so you have 2 different votes, or 3.
Thank you, Dennis.
Elizabeth?
I was just going to say, much like in a budget amendment where you could amend the ordinance before you vote, if there was something that the council wished to amend, you could do that prior to taking a final vote.
Bill?
If there's not a motion yet, I'll move to send ordinance number 2017-05022 to council on June 12th with recommendation for approval.
Second.
Motion by Bill, seconded by Eric. All those in favor say no. Aaron?
Now you can amend it if you want.
So I would like to make a friendly amendment to this motion and to extract number 3. I don't see a number next to it, but I would like to pull number 3, vehicle for hire, from that motion and to vote on that separately. So Charlie, can you help me manufacture that? Welcome to the city clerk's position.
You just made it, you can, if the...
It's an amendment.
If the mover and seconder, who was the second?
I was the second.
Okay, so the mover and second accept that as a friendly amendment, then it's split. Otherwise, you would move it as an amendment and get a second, and it would be a separate vote to split it.
So, can I ask your intention, Aaron? So what you'd like to do is pull that out of the motion and then immediately consider item 3 separately? That is, this meeting, these next few minutes? Is that your intention?
Yes, that's fine. Yes.
Okay. Well, I would accept that as a friendly amendment.
I got it.
Sure.
Any question?
Jared?
Sorry, Mary. Alice. Does it not have to go, even if we can't approve it right now? It
So-
has to go and be out for 30 days, right?
So it's not getting approved, but what could happen is, and I'm not suggesting this, I'm just saying, if you could say, I don't think we should have any fee increases to the vehicle for hires, anything outlined in number 3. You're asking me to remove that. If you're asking me to remove that, I'll strike that out of there. Or if you say, oh, I don't like this fee, I think it's a little too high, I would like for you to make it this, then I can make those changes, and then tomorrow morning it goes on file in that format.
So one of the things we could do is for that particular item, send it to the council meeting with no recommendation. Because the rest of it, the motion is recommendation for approval. We could send this with no recommendation.
Diane?
Or you could amend this motion to not increase this particular fee and send the ordinance on. So strike number 3.
Which is the friendly amendment, is that correct? Aaron?
That would be fine with me.
So
I accept that.
Okay, all right.
No, I have to ask a question.
Okay, Eric.
Elizabeth, have you broken out how much revenue that particular item is estimated to bring in?
Beth's gonna answer it, this Elizabeth.
Oh, okay.
It's minimal. That was going to, it would be about a $700 increase.
Okay, sure. I would. So if there's an amendment to not raise that fee, then I would be cool with accepting that as friendly.
You're so cool.
All right, so the first and the second approve the friendly amendment, is that correct? Is that what we have? All
Okay.
right, Bill and Eric, excellent, okay. All those in favor say aye.
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 All those opposed? That motion carries.
Now, that was the friendly amendment. So do we vote on the whole thing now? Or did we just do that?
We just
We just did
Just
that.
want to make sure I was clear. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You thought that was going to be easy, didn't you?
I thought it was.
Yeah, it was easy, right?
Dean, your good friend would have been, he would have wanted you to say that the amount was de minimis.
All right, moving on. Number 11 on the agenda, resolution number 2017-05032R, resolution to approve an intergovernmental cooperative agreement between the City of Urbana and the Illinois Department of Revenue.
So the City of Urbana has in the past had an intergovernmental agreement with the Illinois Department of Revenue, which allows certain people who are part of the agreement to be able to access detailed sales tax data at the business level. We don't use this often, but I will provide an example, which is this year, as you all know, our sales tax revenues have not been looking too great. And so in that instance, I did use the data that they provided us to dig in and try and see, you know, was this relating to one particular business or was a certain group of businesses and so on. So it is useful to have this. They have asked us to approve a new agreement replacing the one that's been in place for years. And so I think this is pretty straightforward. We'd really like to have that information.
All right, questions, Dennis?
Well, I don't have a question, but I can make a motion. I move Resolution 2017-05032R concerning an agreement between the City of Urbana and the Illinois Department of Revenue to City Council with approval.
Second.
Motion by Dennis, seconded by Jared. Dean?
I had a question, if I could
Yeah.
get that in there.
Absolutely.
Is there any other information that the city would obtain from the state other than the sales tax number, the revenue?
Well, there's a lot of information we get from the state, but under this agreement, it would specifically be sales sales taxes reported for each reporting period, monthly or quarterly, for each business.
So it's specific to that. That's the information that the city would get. It doesn't cover any other information that the city could collect.
No, I guess I'm not sure what else you're thinking we might get.
I'm just curious what information the city could get from the state regarding any business, other than the amount of sales tax that they're.
No, I mean,
generating.
they provide it to us on a disc, the data, there's the business name, the IBT number, their taxpayer identification number, and month by month what they reported in terms of sales tax.
Okay, I'm
So
just curious. Sometimes
it's pretty minimal.
other things are piggybacked in there, so I was just curious.
Yeah, and actually, it's very protected. Each person who has access to that data has to sign a confidentiality agreement with the state. We're not allowed to disclose it. If we are going to share information, it has to be aggregated for a group of businesses so that none of it is identifiable to a specific business.
Yeah, I saw that.
So it's
Thank
pretty
you.
strict.
Appreciate it.
Any other questions or discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? That motion carries. All right. Resolution number 2017-05033R, a resolution ascertaining prevailing wages.
So in the state of Illinois, municipalities are required to annually adopt a prevailing wage for that municipality. As a practical matter, almost all municipalities adopt the prevailing wage based on the information that is compiled by the Department of Labor, because it would not be practical, for example, for Urbana to go do our own survey to determine our own prevailing wage. Unfortunately, the Department of Labor hasn't updated their prevailing wage rates since July 2015, and so just as last year we were forced to adopt those rates, we're forced to adopt those rates again this year. If by chance they provide updated data, and I know that they have been working on it for at least 6 months now, then we would substitute that before you vote on this. But I think it's really a staffing issue at the state is the reason for not having it updated.
Question, Aaron?
So all municipalities would have to go with those numbers.
Well, unless they're going to spend the money to privately survey to determine a prevailing wage, yes, and I don't know any that do. I mean, they establish rates by county, so these are the rates for Champaign County. A municipality in Cook County would have different rates and so on.
But Champaign, Rantoul, all these other places, cities, towns would have to use, that are in Champaign County, would have to use these rates, right?
Right, yeah, this is exactly the way that Champaign does it, and I'm confident all the other cities, yes.
And so if the Department of Labor next week says, no, these are the prevailing wages, then we have to come back and adopt them, or does this qualify or apply to the entire year for us? How does this work?
So I think in practice, and maybe Bill can help me with this, in practice, I think we refer our contractors to the Department of Labor website, but still we are required to adopt a prevailing wage.
No, I understand that part. What I'm saying is that if the Department of Labor, though, next week after we adopt this, they say, no, those are wrong and everything's 38 cents higher than that, then do we have to come back and amend this to take into consideration what they say are now the prevailing wages?
I suppose we could do that. It would not be required, but again, in practice, all of our contractors are paying whatever prevailing wage is currently on the Department of
website.
Labor website, because we write that into our documents.
All right, Eric?
As I read the resolution, we probably would need to come back because the resolution specifically says Illinois Department of Labor as of July 2015. So if there was an updated, if these were updated, wouldn't we need to come back and pass an amended resolution that had the new date?
Right, but I think that would have no practical effect because I think our bidding and contracting documents actually require the contractor to
Okay.
use whatever the current rates are on the website. So this is essentially an exercise that we're required to do by the state, which has, I think, no real impact on the wages our contractors pay.
All right, Dennis.
Yeah, I mean, would it be possible that one city in the county would decide to adopt a scale that was, say, 10% lower or higher, and would that be a legal adoption?
I don't think they can adopt wages that are lower than the wages set by the Department of Labor. I suppose they could adopt wages that are higher, but I think the alternative to adopting the Department of Labor rates is to actually conduct a comprehensive survey of labor rates in your community, which is likely such a cumbersome and costly process that nobody actually does it.
So there's not that much fluidity in what the individual cities actually can do without a study.
Yes.
Yeah, well,
Eric.
yeah, besides that, if we conducted a survey, what we would find out is all the contractors were paying the prevailing wage according to the, so it couldn't possibly tell us we know what it would tell us.
All right. Any other discussion? Is there a motion?
So moved.
I'll second.
Motion by Aaron. Who seconded?
I did, Dennis.
Dennis, thank you. Seconded by Dennis. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? That motion carries. All right. Resolution number 2017-05034R, a resolution authorizing acceptance of an Illinois Arts Council agency grant for the Youth Employment in the Arts Project, the Public Arts Program.
Good evening. So we were fortunate enough to receive a second grant from the Illinois Arts Council agency this year. It's an $1,800 grant for a summer youth employment internship position that we'll move forward with hiring as soon as possible. All of the matching funds for this position are covered by our existing budgeted program expenditures, and the intern will simply be assisting with our existing programs. So there's no new expenditures beyond the $1,800 for the position.
All right. Questions? Aaron?
So the person hired is going to be an artist, or is this? Yeah, that's my question.
Well, they have to be enrolled in high school, I think is the primary requirement, but we would look for a student who has a career interest in this field.
And as long as is it 16 or is it work permit? How does that work?
I'm not entirely sure, honestly, but I'll be working with the Human Resources Department for the hiring.
How is this advertised? Do you advertise it through the schools? Where do you?
I would hope we will advertise it for the school, but again, we'll work with the Human Resources Department to develop that. I know we said some things about what we would do in the grant, but I've yet to really sit down and plan that out yet. But I think that's a great approach, considering we have enough time here. The clock is ticking.
All right. Any other questions?
Aaron, from what I understand from what I read, Brandon, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but this is more of a behind-the-scenes kind of a job, organizational, administrative, that kind of stuff, rather than we're not hiring someone to make art.
Oh,
Right.
yeah, that's correct. Yeah, the
Right.
role is administrative. However, oftentimes if a student's considering a career in public art or arts administration, they typically have other art pursuits as well. So.
All right. Is there a motion?
I'm sorry. One other question.
Aaron?
So as a part of the youth employment program, though, there is basically a group of almost targeted type of youth for the youth employment program. Is
Well,
that correct?
Right. The grant is for youth employment, and they need to be enrolled in high school. And we would look for youth who are going to benefit from this experience, and that it's advancing their goals in life as well.
So that's well, let me say my understanding of the summer youth employment program as it when it was introduced in Champaign, and now we're sort of piggybacking on it, was designed to target particular youth that were not being exposed necessarily to the job market and understanding how things work in the employment field, and also maybe even hoping to offset some of the violence that we saw or we see in the community. So that's what I'm getting at.
Diane?
Although the terms they're using are the same, I think these are two separate programs. The Summer Youth Employment Program that you're thinking about is administered through the Urbana School District and the Champaign School District, and the fiscal agent is the Regional Planning Commission. This is using the same term, Summer Youth Employment, but it's a completely different funding source, and it's administered through the city of Urbana.
That's correct. It's administered, or the funding, we receive the funding through the Illinois Arts Council Agency, but they receive the funding from the National Endowment for the Arts. And so that title is actually derived from the federal source of funding, is where the name comes from.
So how long have we been doing this?
This is the first time we have received one of these grants. You have to have received another IACA grant in order to qualify for this one. And I think they kind of use that as a filter, that you've had some successful grants with the Illinois Arts Council Agency, so they know that then when they follow up with this grant, that the youth are getting exposure to, you know, an arts program that's established and has sort of been vetted already.
So then we solicited this grant?
Yes.
Right? And we applied for it. And so I guess I'm concerned along the lines of what Diane was just sharing about the Summer Youth Employment Program and what it was designed to do, to now for Urbana to adopt something. When we speak about summer youth employment, we've been getting a lot of pressure. I certainly have been, from people in the community saying, why isn't Urbana doing more about the Summer Youth Employment Program and taking the same spirit for which it was designed to address? So I'm just advocating for this position. Of course, I want us to have the position and to receive the grant, but I would want us to consider the likelihood of youth who are somewhat at risk and would benefit greatly from the program as well. And then I could finish my sentence by using your talking points here.
Dennis?
Having recently participated in a judging of arts with the ACTSO NAACP-sponsored art enrichment program that is done in both the junior high, in the middle school and the high school, as part of an enrichment program for specifically African American students. I think that we do have a pool of very potential nominees for individuals who may actually want to apply for this job, because during that program that we had on Saturday afternoon, we saw performance arts being done by a variety of students, some of them graduating, some of them still in school, who probably would benefit greatly by having an additional experience in organization, and who have probably really good skills to even apply for the job. I imagine there is going to be vetting of the applicant, so you want to have an individual who has the skills and the organizational competence to do the job efficiently. So that's at least one pool of young youth resources in high school and the middle school who I would access and make sure that these people are invited to apply.
Aaron?
Just one last one for me. When we have a grant or something like this, does the department head choose the person, or is it an HR decision?
I mean, the Human Resources Department is involved in our hiring processes, and we work proactively with them. And then once you've gone through the steps required in that process, typically there's a hiring manager. In this case, it would probably be me, would be my guess.
So the department, so it's not even the department head, a member of a department could make the hire in a particular situation?
After you've gone through the appropriate process. So there's more of a process involved, say, for a civil service appointment or a full-time position, versus this would be a temporary position with the city. So there's less of a process involved.
That's interesting to me. It sort of throws me off from a standpoint of HR, because I thought that was the role of HR, was to make a hire, right, and Human Resources Department with the support or the input of a department head or something like that. So that's just a little bit different for me from what I'm thinking about. But and then for another member of a department who's not even a department head to be able to make a hire, is it just something like this in a grant situation, or like even just a member of, if somebody was applying for a job, Libby wouldn't even have to make the hire, or Alec, you could hire somebody in community development for a full-time job?
I mean, in a bureaucratic structure, everyone has a direct report. At a certain level in the city, the designation of a hiring manager. So usually that's a division manager, and above that, department heads, and occasionally the mayor or an administrator would be the one to make that decision. I think that's fairly consistent across organizations, that it's actually management that makes the decision on the hire with the support and guidance of human resources. But, you know, we don't have any HR folks here tonight, but
And I'm not
that's
trying to
usually how
put
it
you on the
works. No,
spot.
I
You just
understand.
happen to raise it, and you can take the heat. I know some people
Yeah.
can't take it.
I'm basking it. Thank you.
Diane, did you have something? No?
All right. Is there a motion to send this to council with a recommendation or no recommendation?
Motion to send this to council with recommendation for approval.
Second?
Motion by Amons, seconded by Eric. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say nay. That motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, she learns fast, doesn't she?
It was seconded by
Study.
Dennis.
I'm really
Dennis.
impressed.
Aye,
Yeah, you get an A.
Okay. The last one, the resolution number 2017-05035R, resolution approving an agreement with the Illinois Department of Transportation, Lincoln Avenue improvement from south of, I can't say that word, Killarney Street to north of West Saline Court. Public Works, sorry, Killarney, thank you.
Good evening. I'm Craig Schunkweiler, Assistant City Engineer for Transportation Improvements. The city proposes to resurface North Lincoln Avenue from south of Killarney up to the north end near Saline Court. Within that portion, within that project, there's a small portion that borders from basically the on-ramps and off-ramps at I-74 that's within the IDOT, or the Illinois Department of Transportation's jurisdiction. What you have before you is there's an agreement that allows the city to be reimbursed for work within that portion. And there is a resolution that authorizes the mayor and city clerk to enter into that agreement on the behalf of the city of Urbana. The upper maximum amount of cost within that portion is calculated to be at upper max of $200,000. Staff is recommending that the committee consider this action.
Questions? Aaron?
I move to send this to council with recommendation for approval.
I actually had two questions.
Sure.
My first question was, so this was approved at 1.4 million with the city council approval, right?
Yes.
So the total amount of
Excuse me,
reimbursement.
Madam Chair. There has to be a second before there's any discussion.
I'll second.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Eric. Thank you, Bill. So motion by Aaron, seconded by Bill. Now I can ask my questions?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So does that mean if the total amount of 1.4 million is spent, that we would get 200,000 back? Is that, so we would be
No.
spending 1.2 million?
Yes.
Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And then my second question was with item number 18 in the resolution. It said that it can be, let's see here, obligations of the state and the city will cease immediately without penalty or further payment being required if, in any fiscal year, the Illinois General Assembly of federal funding sources fails to appropriate or otherwise make funds available for this contract. So my question is, what's going on with the state?
Well-
Any thoughts?
From my contacts with the Illinois Department of Transportation, they say the money's actually, so I guess it's budgeted in a bigger pot. It's not specifically for this project. So they're basically earmarking some of their money that they have in a bigger pot for this project.
So in other words, they have the money?
They have the money.
They have the money?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes.
All right.
I will tell you, so let's just play devil's advocate. Let's say they came forth, we bid the project, which we're anticipating to go to bid here in June, complete the work this summer, this fall. But let's say we go to bid, they come back and say, no, we don't have the money. Well, then we change order it out of the contract. So that means we would not go forward with the work. It would gap. We would come up to their boundary, stop it, skip it, go to our boundary.
Okay. All right. Any other questions? Bill?
Yeah, I don't remember. Wasn't there another North Lincoln Avenue project? I think maybe south of there that still needs to be done, or is that the one I'm thinking of?
Well, we've got a couple North
There's one we
Lincoln.
put off for a couple years because of MCOR or something.
Well, we've got, our next North Lincoln is from Green Street, which is where MCOR's at, up to University. We actually have survey crews out there this week doing the survey, and it's planned for construction next year. We also have a future project from Washer up to Killarney here.
That's probably the one I was thinking of. Yeah, it's
and
still
that's in
pretty
the
bad
5-year
there.
plan.
Okay. You can't, there's no way to incorporate this with that.
No, the problem is the amount of money. We have to piece these things out because, as an example, we get $1 million annually for state motor fuel tax. So we have to kind of bundle that together, and sometimes we have to use local gas tax to match. In this case, it's all state funds that we're using.
And they still have a certain number of cents per gallon tax. Is that how the state works?
Yeah, so
Too
it's
bad
all
they
on.
wouldn't just make that a percentage or something.
Yeah. I have my thoughts, but they don't seem to want to hear me.
Okay.
Charlie? No? Any other questions? All right. All those in favor of moving this to council with approval, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? That motion carries. No, it does not.
Now I need a question.
Yes. Now, Charlie?
I just want to let you know that you have new folders for the dais in front of you. Those are for storage of items that you want to keep.
Put your mic on.
I'm sorry, I turned it off. You have new folders on the dais for each of you. Those are for you to keep materials here that you want to store on your desk. For example, I kept a copy of the zoning map so I could refer to it, other things like that. New materials that are delivered to us that come to you that don't get into the packet will be placed on top of the folders for you to pick up on Monday night and to look at. And so in my case, I left a few items for my for my successor here that she might find useful. I don't know what your predecessors, the other new folks, what was left behind for you.
All right. Well, that is, yes, Diane.
I just wanted to give a heads up to the council and public that next week we'll be presenting the proposed budget for fiscal year 2018. So I doubt if we'll be leaving at 8:05. But anyway, look forward to discussing that with you. Thank you.
All right. No further business. This meeting is closed. Thank you.